When was that time in your life that you would consider to be the good old days? When is that time that you will look back on fondly and just remember how good they really were? For me, it's 2018. I'm writing this script in the summer of 2025, and if you had asked 2018 version of me where he thought he'd be 7 years later, I reckon he would have said something along the lines of, I don't know, that's so far away. I think that naivety of being a teen is somewhat beautiful. The openly ignorant view to the world and the passage of time is something that you only notice once you lose that innocent view that surrounds you during your childhood. I often look back now and resent my younger self for not taking in every moment, not going on that trip, not trying new things. But then I remember what younger me would have thought. 17-year-old me would have been so afraid to do all of those things. That version of me was trying his best to express himself, be the person he was destined to be whilst being talked down by his peers, laughed at for daring to be a fan of something that was considered different to the norm, whilst also experiencing his first real experience of loss. 17-year-old me wouldn't be looking so far into the future because the present day was already scary enough. I resent my younger self for not enjoying the moment, but I fail to remember that childhood me didn't see the future. They did take each day by day because he didn't know what was going to come the following day. I think I owe it to my younger self to be more kind on the past. That version of me doesn't deserve his future self to be clowning on his decisions. Growing up is really, really scary. You don't realise that you're not a kid anymore until you're sat in your room at night and nobody's talking to you. The joy of being a kid is that all your friends are nearby. You go to school with them every day and you don't ever think about what life's going to be like when school ends. It's been 6 years since my high school days were over, and I can comfortably say that from the friends I had back on the day we left, maybe 40% of them still remain in my immediate circle. That's not to say that they're not my friends anymore. Quite the opposite. It's just that as you grow up, you all go on different paths. Paths that take you to a place where you cannot be physically around those same people day to day like you once could. Even with the availability of social media, it's really hard to keep those strong connections when you're halfway across the country from one another. I'm honestly quite lucky that I still have those remaining friends so close to me, and I make it my mission to keep those friends that are on the outer circle as close in as I possibly can. They say that breakups are the hardest emotional challenge for a person, but I put forward the feeling of losing a friend you'd spent the best part of your days with. I think the saddest part about being in your 20s is that feeling that you're observing your friends' lives through a screen. You're rooting for them, but they don't even know that you're there. Since I've left school, I've made new friends, and of course I value them just as much as my previous friends. But there's just something about losing touch with friends that you've had since you were a child. I'm going to tell you about my first ever friend. His name is Simon, and I met him when I was in elementary school. I don't know how me and Simon became friends, but we did one day. And although we distanced as we went into middle school, he remained just on that outer circle. Fate would have it that in our final year of middle school, we were seated next to each other for our geography class. At this point, Simon was a pretty popular kid, and I was just your average guy, so it felt a little daunting at first to speak to him. But anyway, after that year, we both kind of went our separate ways, and we began that era of our lives where we started to think about our futures. I officially entered the golden years, without even knowing it. Years passed by, and I was at university now, and Simon was living out in Chicago. But we reconnected, and he started talking to me about YouTube and creating content. Because at this point, I had a somewhat successful channel, and Simon had an interest in getting into that field for his own career. To me, this was a complete surprise, but a warm surprise. We talked back and forth for a bit, and eventually our conversation faded out, and I didn't hear from him for a long time after that. The year is now 2022, and I'm still in the UK, working at a cinema, while Simon, he's living out in the United States as a citizen. But one day, I spot a familiar face when I'm going about my day, and it's Simon, here back in the UK. We have a little chat and he tells me how he's become a US citizen and he's now working in Chicago and he's just come back for the holiday season. But I get his new phone number and he sends me a text later that night. Sadly, nothing ever came from that conversation, but it was just a reminder that despite all this distance between us, despite it being over 15 years since we first met, he still remembered me, despite not knowing what I was doing at that point. I don't know much about his life now. All I know is from his LinkedIn updates. but he's doing well, and I'm rooting for him, just as I am for all my friends who aren't physically with me anymore. I hope this little story about me and my oldest friend goes to show that life finds a way of bringing those back to you when you just least expect it. This experience brings me onto a poem I saw when browsing TikTok one late evening. I went back to the past, no one is there anymore, not even me. The poem essentially covers that feeling of going to your hometown, your old school, and just hoping to find that nostalgic feeling of home. But when you get there, you soon realise that everything you remember about that place is all but gone. All that remains are the physical structures that have no feeling. You go there expecting a hero's welcome, but instead you're just a nobody in somebody else's story. Nothing is there for you anymore. Everyone you once associated with that place has moved on, whether you want to accept that or not. To me, that feeling hurts, but not in a painful way, rather a melancholic understanding that time will move on, regardless of if I want to accept that or not. To summarise this all together, I'd like to refer to a quote from the video game Red Dead Redemption. We can't always fight nature, we can't fight change, we can't fight nothing. My whole life, all I ever did was fight. I think from this quote and the previously mentioned poem, it sums up nicely how it feels to be stuck with that dread of nostalgia and the fear of growing old. No matter what you try and do to recapture your youth, no matter how much you cry, your youth is just never coming back. As hard as that is to accept, I think that by accepting that time will move on, regardless of if you're ready for it, you'll be able to move forward in the best possible way. I don't doubt that I'll still reminisce with my friends over the time some years gone by, but if I can cherish the moments that are still yet to come, then maybe the future just doesn't have to be so scary. Maybe 2018 was the good old days, but there's no reason why the future just cannot be the good days.